Hello everyone. Today's video is going to be about adding materials, and specifically we're just going to start by adjusting the colors on our mesh. So I'm going to start and I'm going to open up the sword. Here we are. So here is the sword, and by default Maya has a Lambert on it. I did that by, there's these little scroll arrows that you can scrub through here. If you just right click on it, you can go to any one really quickly. So Lambert 1, this is our default material. Now other things we need to keep in mind when adding color or changing color or anything like that. You'll see right away this starts to change color, and we don't want to do it on our default texture. Reason being is that, let's just say I change it to pink like I had just had it. From now on, everything that I bring in to model will be pink, because the default texture of every new model is Lambert 1. Now, if you're comfortable modeling in pink or whatever other color, I'm accustomed to just modeling in the default gray. And for any other material that I create, model I create, I'll add a new material and adjust the color in that fashion. Now, from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight my faces that I want to change the color of. In this instance, I'm going to change the color of just my blade. Now the blade here is, I'm in smooth mode, and I prefer to be in smooth mode when selecting these faces, because when I press 3 I can see here that I have these extra faces that actually run up the blade if I were to run a smooth or subdivide the mesh to add additional polygons. But this is fine for now. So I want to grab these faces, and the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to assign a new material. From this point I'm going to go ahead and explain some of these different shaders, materials, etc. So the most common, we'll just cover some of the basics. The most common is Phong, Lambert, Blinn. After that, it's just getting a little too complicated. Ramp shaders are pretty popular, but we're not going to get into them. So maybe later in the semester we'll cover what a ramp shader is, but just for this particular video we'll stick with the basics. So Blinn, Lambert, and Phong. Now Blinn and Phong here they're very, very similar. They have some different properties and attributes that you can add and things to, but for our purpose we're gonna stick with Blinn for now. Now Blinn and Phong, Blinn, both of these have properties that allow us to add sort of shininess or sleekiness to the blade, and in this case we want our blade to have a little shine to it like it's metal. So I'm going to start with selecting my Blinn. Now right off the bat you're not going to notice a huge change, and I'm going to just give it a slightly darker color to differentiate it from the rest. Now what you'll notice is, and let me turn off shading and wireframe on shaded. Now what we have here is, you may not see it right away, but you'll see the shine running up this blade here. You see it right here, and you will not see that on this part. You will not see this shine at all because it's a Lambert. It doesn't have reflective properties like a Blinn does. So in my blend, some of the things that we can change in its materials is obviously the color, and I'm in actually Lambert 1, I need to be in blend. So in my blend here, you'll notice some of the things that the difference between Lambert and blend is primarily the specular shading. That's what gives it that shininess that we need for something that's metallic. So my specular color, I'm just going to leave this as the same. We'll discuss what specular maps are and normal maps and texture maps are in a later video. For today, we'll just cover sort of what these do. So eccentricity, you'll see the blade here right along this edge. I'll be able to increase or decrease it, and that's the amount of shine. And then here in the little sample, you'll see it's the little focal point of the shine of where the light hits. Now the other thing is the specular roll-off. Follow this sphere again. You'll see it changes the sort of like the brightness of the focal point of our shine. So maybe I can increase this I just want it to be subtle, so that's pretty good. And you'll see it shine around. Now the next thing I can do is add a different color to this part, and I'm going to simply, looks like I have, what I can do actually is do this and turn symmetry off. I already know which faces I want to select. Oop. And then this is a really fast way to select things, selecting everything that you need. So let's say I select all of these. I know I don't want these selected because that's part of the blade, and I'm just going to ensure that I didn't deselect any faces over here. And then I don't want the handle, so I'm going to go ahead and deselect these, and I'm just holding shift and running a click and drag over it. And these, just because they're so close, I don't want to deselect any extra faces that I have to, so I'm just going to run around this and select these manually one by one. So now for this particular part, I'm going to add a new color. So I'm going to assign new material, and in this case I think like the entire thing is pretty much metal. Maybe the handle's done in like a leather or something, which would, or so maybe some kind of different kind of cloth. But we'll try to, and we'll try the Fong, and I'll show you some of the differences. And you'll notice they have some of these different types of settings. Now they're a little difficult to sort of explain the major differences, because if you don't recognize it already, it does have a little bit more of a sleekness in visibility than the blend does. So you'll see this has more of I want to call it like a plastic look to it, but you can obviously change it by going to your Fong. So blend has these eccentricity, specular roll-off, and reflectivity we're going to bring down to, I'm going to bring that down to 0.104. I'm going to keep a little bit on, but when we get into rendering, reflectivity uses a lot of computing power from your PC, and it can increase render time and the amount your computer needs to render for an exuberant amount of time. It can add so much time to your renders, and if you don't have a really powerful computer, it will take a ridiculous amount of time. So we're going to keep this low. Reflectivity does look pretty when the render's finished, but I don't want you to sort of get consumed later in the semester by reflective properties, because of the amount of time it takes to render. And if your PC isn't a very powerful PC, it will take forever. It'll even freeze, crash, so on and so forth. So make sure that your PC is able to you play with your settings according to the properties of your computer that you're rendering with. And we'll get more into rendering later, but it's something I want to bring up right away because it is a very important thing. This reflectivity can really cause a lot of extra additional render time. And if you're messing around with these materials, there are many times you might forget. So I want to bring this up now, so maybe later you might say, oh yeah, I remember that. Anyway, moving forward, for our Fong, we have the same thing. And if I start to mess around with the cosine power, you'll notice in our sample here, it's just more of a sharper light source where it actually makes contact with the light. And I'm going to bring it to, I guess the default is fine. And I'm going to make this different color. And I'm going to bring this down to 0 because I don't want this to reflect at all. And this color, I'll make a darker color, like a really dark gray. Not black, but dark gray. There we go. And then I have my handle. And I can simply just select these. And that's all I need for this particular part. And then I'm going to assign new material. In this case, I'm going to do a Lambert. And the reason I'm doing a Lambert is because, and one more thing, we can rename all of our materials. So this will be handle material. And I'm going to make this one a sort of a brownish kind of color. And it doesn't look my Lambert. So if your colors aren't displaying as you change your Lambert material, just make sure you press 4 for wireframe, 5, and then 6. So I do that. It's just a habit of mine that I go through all 3 of my 4, 5, 6. That changes wireframe mode, and then shaded display, and then 6 is shaded display with texture maps. So now it'll display all colors on our blade. So we have this sword that's starting to come along, and then at the bottom I still have my little base handle here, if you will. And I'll change this one, assign new material, and we'll call this, I'm going to add a blend to it. We'll call this base handle material. And we'll change the color of this one to also, what might this be made out of? Maybe like some kind of stone or something. I don't know. Maybe it's like a pebble or rock that someone sort of sanded down to be spherical at the bottom. I'm just using my imagination because I wanted to have some different sort of properties. So maybe something more along the lines of this color. And we'll go to base handle material. And I don't know why the color's not pulling up. Four, 5, 6. Ah. There we go. So now I've got this little darker sort of rock here, and then on my Fong one is the I'm going to call it the hand protector. Protect. I think that's how you spell it. Maybe not. Close enough. Hand protector material, because this is the hand protector I'm going to call it. This is going to be my blend one, is my blade material. And there I have my different materials here. Base handle material, and I'm going to mess around with some of the settings down here. Reflectivity, none. I'm going to give it a less of a shine here because it's going to be some like kind of granite kind of rock or something. I don't know, some kind of stone I'm going to pretend it is at the bottom. And then I'll have my handle, which will be like a leather in color. I could even do it darker and do like a dark leather, like a black leather or something like that, but brown suits it for now. And then you can see that I have my sort of really sleeky, shiny Fong material here that I kept the settings as default, but just to show you some of the different properties of these. So here we have our blin. Okay, here's our blin. Then our Fong, and you can see the difference in the shininess of it. The blin is subtle. You can change it obviously in the settings, whereas the Fong is sort of like this extreme on corners and reflectivity or specularity. I'm sure it is with the reflection high too, but we're not going to get into rendering yet. And then we've got our handle here. That's a Lambert, which is just a base color, no reflectivity on it, no specularity on it, because it's going to be like this cloth handle. And this is our sort of, I'm just pretending it's some kind of like rock granite sort of stone base sphere at the bottom, where this might be wooden, and then this is some other metal or something, and then this is obviously our sleek blade here. So there's our sword. Very, very simple method to adjusting color on our blade, and we're going to go ahead and do this for this particular sword, and then I want to do it also with the shield. So I'm going to cut this video short, and I'm going to start our next video, and I'm going to show you the same sort of thing except with our shield. So our shield's going to have some extra properties here, and we'll get into texturing also with our shield. So that is our introduction to materials, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and stay tuned for the next one. Thanks for watching.